Please welcome to the stage, Naomi Wild.
I am not a stranger to the dark. Hide away, they say, 'cause we don't want your broken parts. I learned to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say, no one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, I'm gonna send the blood, gonna drown them out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come. And I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen, I make no apologies. This is me.
A special message from Mayor Linda Gorton.
You've never heard of him? Oh boy, I've never heard of him either. And we've got this invitation right now to go to this roast. I mean, oh, you heard that in his previous work, he always wore black? That's kind of weird, isn't it? I mean, I think it is. I like black, but I don't wear it all the time. Who'd you hear that from? Oh, okay, some guys at the Y? Well, they might know. I don't know. Okay. Well, you know, I can't go on the 3rd anyway, so it isn't going to work. How do you think he says his name anyway? Let's look here. Scorsese? No. I get the Ernesto. That's pretty easy. Scorsone? You think it's Italian? Is it Italian? Okay. I mean, this is really weird. Wearing black to work every day, they said? I just don't get that. I mean, most people pick a color every now and then, right? This is just weird. Okay, well, we need to find a little more out about this. I mean, if we've never heard of the guy, why are they roasting him? Okay. All righty. Thanks for calling me back. Okie doke. Talk to you later. Bye-bye. So, this must be Ernesto Scorsone. That's it.
Please welcome President of the JustFund Kentucky Board of Directors, Brandel Skirvin.
Thank you. Welcome. Good evening and welcome to Roasted Ernesto Scorsone. My name's Brandel Skirvin. I'm the board president of JustFund Kentucky. And on behalf of our board, we want to thank you so much for your support, support that's come from many of you for many years. We all had these jobs tonight, and they said, Brandel, you have to have a job to help make the night successful, but you're the least funny of anyone. So my job is to handle the serious stuff. So let me begin by thanking our sponsors. Many of you have been sponsors of ours since the very beginning, and we simply could not do this without you. The sponsors are listed in the program, and we do hope that you will support those people because they've been great to us and great to our community. We also want to thank all of our print advertisers tonight. Your program is 30 pages, which we did not anticipate, and so we're so excited about that. And we also want to thank you. Without you, we could simply not do this. You've been supporting us since 2006, and we are so grateful. We have a lot of people that helped us make tonight special, and I'd like to thank them, one of which is Walter May, our MC. Walter, thank you. Bo List, Ben Wagner, the stage manager, Michael Breeding Media, Mayor Gorton, who was fantastic, wasn't she? Our roasters, Sue Ann, Chris, and Wayne, and our many video roasters, and to our volunteers. We could not do it without volunteers. We are a completely volunteer board, and without them, we could not pull off the programs that we do. Tonight, we have with us some very special guests. If I miss anyone, please let us know. I apologize. First, Jim Gray, our Secretary of Transportation. Angela Evans, County Attorney. Vice Mayor Steve Kay, Judge Lucinda Masterton, Diane Minifield, candidate for Fayette Circuit Court, Dan Wu, candidate for Council at Large, Chad All, candidate for State Representative, Ross Ewing, candidate for Family Court Judge, John Larson, candidate County Judge Executive, and Carl Devine, Family Court Judge. We tried to make it through the crowd. If we missed you, I apologize, and we'll be happy to recognize you. Now, for a very brief walk through memory lane. As many of you know, JustFund was founded as an idea from Ernesto Scorsone and Deborah Hensley to build an endowment to promote fairness for the LGBTQ Kentuckians. JustFund was not created to do any programming. Instead, our goal was to support organizations across the state who have projects that they would like to do. With the generous support of Cliff Todd, who pledged us $500,000 if we would simply match it. We lost Cliff last year, but his memory continues. So in 4 short years, with the help of many of you in this room, we raised the other $5,000 and established our $1 million endowment. Last year, we celebrated passing the $2 million mark. This $2 million mark makes us one of the largest LGBTQ permanent endowments in the Southeast. To date, as of last year, we have given $520,000 to 70 deserving organizations, and we have now touched every county in this great Commonwealth. While we've accomplished a lot, there's still a lot of work to do. So tonight, we're here to celebrate. We're here to have a little fun at the expense of our friend Ernesto. and to raise money to continue our great work. And again, I thank you.
Please welcome our evening's Master of Ceremonies, Walter May.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being here tonight to celebrate this nice fellow. Palermo, right? Palermo in Sicily is known for its history and architecture, the Palatine Chapel, the Church of St. John of the Hermits, the Teatro Massimo, and the birthplace of Ernesto Scorsone. He came to America as a child, but he still has Italy in his blood. Yeah. He's not a Ford or a Chevy. He's a Maserati. Tonight, he is to be roasted here in Lexington, Kentucky. And let me tell you, that ain't easy, because mild-mannered is just the beginning of the description of this man. He's not a leg of lamb you shove into the oven. He's more like a veal scallopini that you gently saute, maybe with some mushrooms. I don't know. We will find out, and we will start with his sisters and some friends.
Hello, I'm Keith Lovin. I've been friends with Ernesto for about 40 years. And he asked me to do something for this roast. And so I was thinking, well, he never does ask me to do much. So I thought, but then actually he does ask me to do a lot. He asked me to help him with his fundraisers. He's always asking for money. And he said that he wanted, I could roast him, I could tell funny stories. And I was thinking, well, if I roast him, he probably needs to have a personality. And so I feel like he's the gray sprinkle in a rainbow cake. Maybe I'll just tell a fun story, but then I got to thinking, well, he needed to be funny. He's sort of like an unsalted pretzel.
Usually, Italian families have one child who can do no wrong. Ernesto was the perfect child in our family. Ernesto was the best student, most obedient, and loving son, and referred to as a saint.
So I really love my big brother. He's always had my back. He taught me how to drive. He taught me how to talk to boys, how to wear high heels, and frankly, he looks better in a dress than I do.
I am woman, hear me roar, in numbers too big to ignore.
So people think he's pretty easygoing, which he is for the most part. However, don't forget, he is Italian. And when that temper flares up, watch out. It's like talking to some old Italian drag queen.
And the one thing I thought I was better at, I now see from your drag show debut, you're a really beautiful woman.
He thought he wanted to be an attorney since he was 7. He knew what he wanted to be. He's always wanted to help and change the world for the better, which he has. But I'm glad to see he's finally following his true passion, which is being on stage, just like his little sister.
Speaking of old and gay, Ernesto called me up the other day and wanted to know if I could be part of his roast. He was concerned that maybe people wouldn't have enough insulting things to say about him. Really? I thought to myself, I mean, your ego is as colossal as it ever was.
So back in the 80s, there was this little dance company called Syncopated Inc. Doug Burnham was one of the founders, one of our good buddies, Mariah Cruz. Anyway, Ernesto and Pam Miller and I were asked to be a part of this little fundraiser they did at Woodland Park where everybody was going to tap around the sidewalks. So we get there, and there's Doug Burnham doing these wonderful little twirls and all this beautiful dancing. Pam Miller follows him, acting like little Ginger Rogers, and I look at Ernesto, and he looks at me, and I push Ernesto on. He cracked me up. I thought I was going to die of laughing. He looked like one of those Mr. Gumbies who had like roller skates on trying to be on ice. His limbs were going absolutely everywhere. That's what I've learned about Ernesto. He cannot dance.
I recall his first trip to Boston after he came out as a gay man. How long ago was that? I don't know, 60, 70 years ago? So we actually were a little concerned. Was he equipped for this visit? Setting aside my other concern about his equipment, if you know what I mean. But apparently he was fine. He was there all of maybe, half a day, and he met this little soccer player. The guy was from Syracuse University, and Ernesto was then missing in action for the next 3 days. Now, my concern was, do I call the police or do I call the local gay disco bar buddies? But then, have you seen Ernesto dance? Nah, never mind. So, well, anyway, it all turned out all right. And for the next several days, all we heard about was what a good soccer player this young man was, and what a great time they had. But, he left out a lot of details, and I think the fun part about it was not so much what a good soccer player he was.
Please welcome Sue Ann Allen.
Bit of a log jam on the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, I am the spirit of Ernesto Scorsone, the teen years. I was his debate coach at Henry Clay High School. He got some alarms. He did have the sense to transfer to Henry Clay from Lexington Catholic. And this chubby sophomore who spoke English as a third language wanted to be on the debate team where a command of language is mandatory. Well, the first year there, he had no chance to shine behind the A-team of Bob Beck, the horse lawyer, and David Rosenberg of law school named fame. I did not know I knew anybody worth $20 million, let alone giving it away. But the second year, he paired with Mike Green, who wanted to be frozen after death. He carried a card that said, "Freeze, wait, reanimate." I'm sure Ernesto had a contact high most of that year, being around Mike. The third year, he was the A-team with John Gillig, who I hope is here tonight, though I haven't seen him. Great. John grew a foot over that summer between junior and senior year, and they were being really pushed by the B team of Foster Ackerman and Alan Stein. Honey, I earned my paycheck. That was at a time when we weren't paid extra for extracurricular activities either. Any rate, those two, John and Ernesto, did win the state championship that year in debate and attended the national tournament in Washington, representing our school. But let's return to those early years of Ernesto learning language and learning about Kentucky. Picture it. We are driving to a tournament in Campbellsville, Kentucky, and we are approaching a feature of land that extends from E-Town to south of Lexington. It's sort of a horseshoe-shaped series of hills. And knowing he had little knowledge of the area, I was explaining this topographical feature to him as we came up to them around Bardstown. I told him, these are called the knobs. There was a pause. And Ernesto replied, they look like bosoms to me. It might have been the first sign of sexual confusion. Same drive, same trip, a few miles down the road, in the knobs, on a particularly winding road, Ernesto, ever curious, says, Miss Allen, is this what is called pinhead turns? Pinhead turns? Oh, hairpin turns, Ernesto. Hairpin turns. And I think, I'm sending this kid into verbal battle today. Well, Ernesto, I am proud of you. You mastered 3 languages and legalese. And whether you were raising money in high school for starving Biafran babies, asking us to give the lunch money to them, whether you were a successful defense attorney, a state senator, a job, whatever you've done it well. But Mitch is still there. I am most proud, however, of your being your true self and establishing this organization that is helping so many people throughout the state of Kentucky. Thank you, Ernesto. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Sue Ann. Ernesto seemed destined for law school. He was serious, idealistic. He wanted to do something he could be proud of. His first job after law school was as a public defender in the Office of Legal Aid. Several lawyers in that office, along with the director and Ernesto, filed a class action suit against the city over its practice of housing juvenile detainees with adult prisoners. The Legal Aid Board, oh, by the way, that was illegal. The Legal Aid Board said it didn't want any crusading lawsuits filed and fired the director. Ernesto started extracting himself from his caseload. He knew he had to resign as well. And, taking care of his cases, making sure they're placed, that's the honorable thing to do. And he gave the board 60 days notice that he was resigning, so all this could be done. The board said it wasn't really necessary because they were firing him immediately. That's when Ernesto went into private practice on his own. Not an easy path. Solo practitioners hate it when their secretaries make more than they do. Ernesto and I spent 3 years together in law school, interacting with each other, sharing classes, and yet I didn't know he was gay. Well, neither did he. You know, he made certain assumptions about himself. Went out with women, for instance. It was only after law school that he started dealing with the issue. Now, he was raised Roman Catholic. And when some friends suggested he seek counseling with a priest, he went. That went well. He did get it figured out and became comfortable in the life of a gay man. Given the times in his career, he was not open about it at first, but several years later, he did come out. And among the least surprised people at the announcement of his coming out were the women he dated in law school. Now, let's hear some more about Ernesto's career as a lawyer.
Ernesto, I always wondered how you got the nickname Score, but once we worked together in the law office, I knew it wasn't from your soccer expertise. It was from the ability to get a case dismissed on a technicality without a trial. But Ernesto, you were not like other lawyers. You were so calm. You were so controlled and calculating. You actually were like a Barack Obama, Sicilian Barack Obama. You never screwed up. You had the ability to be in control always. You actually had a rear view mirror on your exercise bike. You, during the entire time we worked together, never ate a sandwich with mayonnaise on it. Your clients just loved you. There was one particular client who was a dark side player, and he will go down in history as the most exonerated drug dealer Lexington ever had.
The client was so grateful to Ernesto that he named his firstborn son Senator Scorsone. Ernesto demurred, pointing out that at the time he was a representative and not a senator. "No problem," said the client. "I've got confidence in you. Someday you'll be a senator."
You know, you hear a lot of things in politics, and I thought I knew Ernesto really, really well. But I heard that he was a smut lover.
We all know Ernesto's most celebrated court case, the successful challenge of the state sodomy law, but he had other humdingers as well. Back in the 1980s, local police attempted to clean up Lexington a bit by trying to rid the city of its bookstores, adult bookstores. There were 2 or 3 of them at the time.
The 2001 bookstore. It was so aptly named because it was located at 2001 Family Circle Drive.
So they went in and raided these bookstores and seized boxloads and boxloads of pornographic videos. The police maintained these stores were selling obscene materials. Smut, they said. So who did the bookstores go out and hire as their attorney? That smut-loving Ernesto?
It was our duty to screen the evidence, and Ernesto, I'll never forget or forgive having to watch 16 full-length, hardcore, pornographic movies.
And he worked his magic, too, because before long, the bookstores had their pornographic materials back, and the case quietly went away.
And if I'm not mistaken, Ernesto, didn't you take quite a bit of the material and paraphernalia home with you for further inspection and review? Well, your good, hard work paid off because we got the case dismissed. The search warrant was overbroad and the evidence was suppressed. And all of the material got returned to the 2001 bookstore, but with the exception of the materials that you took home with you, which I'd imagine, Ernesto, are still in your possession.
I came to respect Ernesto after that. I wasn't sure why. Then it dawned on me. We were both smut lovers. So if you ever get caught peddling smut, Ernesto is your man.
And he never invited me over. Ernesto harbored political ambitions from early on, certainly long before law school. He first ran for office within a couple of years after graduation. I know this because I was working in Washington at the time, and I got a letter from him asking for money. From then on, asking for money became a passion for him. Whether for politics, JustFund, or whatever the subject of the moment was. When donors would see his name on the caller ID, their first instinct would be not to answer, followed by the fear that if he didn't answer, Ernesto would show up at the front door. He lost that first race, but won a term in the Kentucky House in 1984, and then the state Senate in 1996. In 1998, he ran for Congress. Now, this was the first time he'd run for anything outside of Fayette County. And he had to make some cultural adjustments. So he bought a pickup truck. Put a big Scorsone for Congress sign in the bed of the truck and drove around the 6th District for a year or more. When he put his Volvo in the garage in storage, you could almost hear him sob. He lost that race by 7 points, but at least he had reached for it. It's time to hear from some others who witnessed Ernesto's time in politics.
Ernesto Scorsone was a politician before he was a judge and was not always a successful one. He ran first in the Democratic primary for state representative and lost to the incumbent David Van Horn. In that race, Ernesto wanted to boost his name recognition. So he put out bumper stickers with his name spelled out phonetically. His supporters went to the polls and looked at the ballot, didn't see a name with a lot of squiggles and accent marks, so they went home.
You know, back 36, 40 years ago, people did not know, first of all, he has no name recognition. They didn't know how to say his name. You would come up with all kinds of possibilities or getting close. There was one time, Ernesto and I went and met with a group and we said, okay, let's try this. Score Sony. Score Sony.
I'd like to give a shout out on the decision to go with an open casket for the ceremony this evening. We know it's a tough call, but Greg, he looks so natural and lifelike, don't you think?
Bob, he's not dead. This is a roast.
Oh, my bad.
Anyway, this is Ernesto back in 1986. This is his first official legislative portrait. Bob, he's a good-looking guy, don't you think?
Hey, very handsome.
Good-looking young fellow.
Love the stash.
Very good-looking. He's got that fashionable woolly worm mustache working for him there. But, you know, you look at this guy, he's distinguished, and you can tell he's going to have a distinguished career. And early on, he did distinguish himself, Bob, with health care reform.
Yes, and Greg and I worked with Ernesto on healthcare reform legislation. Well, did you know that 28 years ago, right here in Kentucky, our state legislature passed a groundbreaking law, House Bill 250.
Right here in Kentucky?
Right here.
Wow.
Incredible. That law had almost everything that Obamacare did. It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable.
Many advocates argued that the bill would help people get health coverage who had been priced out of the market. And Ernesto Scorsone was one of the handful of legislators who led the charge for the passage of this bill. Go, Ernesto! And boy, was the law a smashing success.
Well, Bob, I don't know about call it smashing.
Not so much. Unfortunately, once it passed, House Bill 250 was like the legislative equivalent of the Hindenburg. Premiums skyrocketed, and over 40, that's right, 40 health insurance companies left the Kentucky market.
You know, Bob, Ernesto's the only person I know in the legislature who pushed for legislation that just about ran out an entire essential business in Kentucky.
Way to go. Tonight, we'd like to present Ernesto Scorsone with the first ever Kentucky Healthcare Pioneer Award for his role in destroying Kentucky's health insurance market. Well done, Ernesto.
Ernesto's known for his brilliant legislative career. Let me get my props here. Ernesto passed the most important education reform bill in the history of Kentucky. It provides for a proficiency test for high school seniors in Kentucky. If they can read this, they get a diploma, okay? Then after 4 years at any Kentucky college, if they can read this, they can go to law school.
Well, it's a pleasure to participate in this retirement roast for you, Ernesto. You know, I was present at a different retirement celebration for you that's much larger than this one, I'm sure, and that's when you retired from the state senate. The Republican caucus had a tremendous celebratory activity on that day. But our relationship has improved, you and I, considerably since you left the Senate. It only had one way to go since you were the bane of my existence while you were over there. But I've really come to appreciate you as a fellow judge and the work you've done here. And I had a kind of a seminal moment in which my attitude changed about you. It really had nothing to do with your left-wing politics or your sitting on the bench. I bumped into you in downtown and you were walking your dog. Now, Ernesto, I always thought that you would be like a Shih Tzu or a poodle sort of guy, but you were walking a Basset Hound. And I thought anyone that has the courage to walk a Basset Hound in downtown Lexington has had to have a change of attitude in his life. So I want to congratulate you on your retirement. I know that you and I have improved in our relationship, but I also noticed that I wasn't asked to participate live tonight. So I guess with you, it was kind of trust and verify.
Please welcome Chris Tracy.
May it please the Imperial Court. Your Honor, this is a roast, right? Let's give him a nice, hearty round of boos, shall we? Boo, hiss, boo, hiss. My name's Chris Tracy. I've been a public defender in Lexington since 2009. That's about 13 years. We're here tonight celebrating 37 years of public service. About 12 days ago, I turned 40. Age jokes, you know, they're cheap. If I start with age jokes, I'm just going to go longer than the ball sack, and nobody wants that, you know. That's low-hanging fruit of the loom. It's a ballsy joke to start out with. No, talked to my kids. I have 2 kids, 7 and 11, and told them about tonight. And they had a real tough time with it, you know. Somebody has asked me to show up and make fun of them. And especially for my 7-year-old, it makes no sense. Not only would she not want that to happen, she also wouldn't want to make fun of anybody. Well, it turns out we actually ran into Judge on Sunday right outside the YMCA, as it were. And so I talked to them this week about it. And I said, what do you remember about it? Well, we remember a couple things. One, the shirt was very, very yellow. Highlighter yellow, and the shorts. I asked my son, okay, if you go from the ankle to the waist, what is the bare leg to short ratio? And he gave me 80-20. So I think all in all, we came to realize that basically 2022 was finally the year that Pac-Man checked his macros and wasn't just outside the gym for the gram. He finally figured it out. I'm really here for, I think, one particular subject tonight, what I like to call the truth. Many of you all know Judge outside of him being a judge, and there's a lot of qualities that we've already heard: likable, affable, feel free to shout them out, sweet, considerate, happy. It's all lies. It's all lies. It's all lies. He was one of the meanest judges you ever came across. He was mean. It's easy to be a mean judge. Some people are mean judges. This is one of the meanest right here. So you can be mean when you're a judge, you can be mean all the time. You have 2 parties in front of you. You can be mean to one of them or the other, or everybody, all at the same time. Some examples. If you miss court, public defenders in the room, if you miss court and judge scores 7th division, where are you going? You're going straight to jail. 5 minutes late, you're going to jail. You're in the hospital. I hope that the ambulance will give you a ride to jail, because you're going to jail. But Judge, I've got my client on the phone. He's walking through downtown. He just ran into Mayor Gordon. She was choking. He gave him the Heimlich. Chief Jason Wells is there. Sheriff Witt's there. They're all here on the phone. I could put them on speaker. Well, I hope we get the paddy wagon out, because everybody needs to go to jail, aiding and abetting failure to appear. Everybody's going to jail. And what's the bond? $30,000. $30,000 bond. There was never a smile on the bench. I take that back. There was one. You can get on probation. Everybody knows probation, right? You get on probation. Well, inevitably, you mess up your probation, and you have to come back in front of the judge and talk about why you messed up your probation. And there was one retort always. Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, man. There's at least 50 different come on mans. But if you decided to climb the mountain of excuses as to why you messed up your probation, Judge, I did not do cocaine. I know I tested positive for cocaine. But it turns out that I have a sexual partner, and my sexual partner does cocaine. And I do sexual things with my sexual partner, and therefore, I must have popped dirty for cocaine. The one time I saw a smile was after that story when he said, "Come on, man, that's bullshit." And it was a sly Grinch smile that kind of took over his face when he knew that the whole courtroom gasped because they weren't used to hearing, "Come on, man, that's bullshit." Obviously, later in his career, we all went through that thing that we all hate to talk about nowadays, but part of that was Zoom court. And judges, all judges, wanted Zoom court about as much as any of us here want a colonoscopy, like terribly. But one of the funniest things ever came out of Zoom court. Every judge did it different. Judge Scorsone thought it wasn't safe to be in the courtroom, so he locked the courtroom. Well, what happened is there's two little conference rooms that are about, 4 foot by 8 foot, and that just crammed about 10 of us in there on the Zoom. So we all gave each other COVID while he sat in there with like 2 other people and did just fine. One day, one fine, sweet day, we were on the Zoom. Judge Scorsone was on the Zoom, running the Zoom, as it were, in his normal, grumpy, mean self. And everybody understands now, it's lovely that we all have this understanding. There is the text box to the side. And if you really know, you can individually chat amongst yourselves. But sometimes, and maybe this happens to some of you, someone chats you up and you mean to chat back to them and you accidentally chat back to the Zoom. There was no comments in the Zoom that I recall until one poor defendant, who's not my client, thank God. All we see is, and it was an especially, Judge Scorsone was looking especially fresh that day. The curls were looking nice and everything. And out of nowhere, it just said this: baby bird looking MF. I'll never forget it. It was fantastic. I'm sure Judge will never forget it either, but for different reasons. When he was the worst, though, was in trial. I had the occasion to have a trial or two with Judge Scorsone. That's when he went from Judge Grump to Justice Asshole. Kind of wonder if you ever considered just putting a condom over your head because you were just such a dick, I have a theory. It goes back to what Mayor Gorton was saying. I think every morning upstairs on the 5th floor when he had to put the damn robe on, he took a look in the mirror and said, this is terribly drab. This put him in a bad mood from the jump. And in fact, I think he missed a whole calling. I think maybe you should have been a fashion designer. Raise your hand if you'd go out tomorrow and buy an Ernesto Scorsone off the rack. I know I would, right? I'm kidding myself. It wouldn't be in my size. I wouldn't be able to get one for sure. So, Judge, this is not a celebration of life. As those gentlemen said, you're not dead yet, old man. You've got a country here and a world that is in the veritable shithole. I mean, look at it. We watched The Handmaid's Tale for fun. Did you see that episode last night? It was awful and great at the same time. We need you. This is a roast. We're trying to light a fire under your ass. I say 37 years. We need at least 13 more. Get out there and do something.
The global pandemic was a real challenge. But imagine being a judge trying to call a criminal court docket via Zoom. And what about the stress that comes along with those kinds of challenges? There's lots of ways to deal with the stress. There's medication, there's alcohol, and then there's Judge Scorsone's way, the stress ball. The greater the stress, the harder and the faster Judge Scorsone would squeeze it. And the ball really seemed to work. Recall the day he was calling his criminal docket. Now, if you've never seen a criminal docket, imagine a computer screen filled with 25 plus attorneys, defendants, and the judge. When one of the defendants, thinking he was privately communicating with another defendant, typed into the chat, "Who's that baby bird looking MFer?" referring to Judge Scorsone. Now let me digress for a moment, Judge. We don't think you look anything like a baby bird. But that defendant sure did, and he let everybody in the courtroom and watching online know. So what'd the judge do? He squeezed the stress ball. He could have sent the sheriff out to arrest the defendant and take him to jail, but he didn't. He simply pressed the block button, preventing the defendant from sending any more messages, hid his profile, and ignored him for the rest of the docket. When court was over that day, he told him to come back next week. And when the defendant returned the next week to be sentenced, the judge squeezed that stress ball and didn't send him to prison. He probated his sentence. No consequence for calling the judge an MFer or saying that he looked like a baby bird. And that's the power of the Judge Scorsone stress ball.
Ernesto was an attorney for many years, won a case every now and then, didn't win a lot of them, was a legislator for several years. I don't know that he ever got any bills passed. So it was probably good that he finally got to become a judge, because that way he's had at least a regular paycheck coming in.
Ernesto, you became a circuit judge after I became a district judge, but I think we both realize now that a judge is just a law student grading his own papers.
He can't write. At least you can't read his writing. I'm not even sure he can spell. Maybe the reason he can't write is because he didn't want to show us he couldn't spell. He's a nice guy, though. He was kind of a decent judge, but I've seen better.
It was a routine type of thing for him to sort of poke his head in my office and say, "Have you got a couple of minutes? I need to run something by you." And so he would come in, sit down, and tell me about some issue or some case he's having a problem with. I would listen to him, give him my thoughts. You would never tell another judge how to rule, but at least your perspective on certain things, maybe make some suggestions, and he'd always just nod his head and be very agreeable. And then ultimately I'd find out that he totally ignored everything I had to say and just did what he was going to do to begin with. So I learned a new technique after several months that figured out that if I just told him the exact opposite of what I thought, he would go opposite of what I thought, and he'd eventually make the right ruling thinking he's going against me. And his rulings got much better, and his reversal rate decreased substantially, because by not listening to me and going the opposite direction, he actually did a much better job. So it was great to work with him.
You know, when I was first asked to do a video about Ernesto Scorsone, I really wasn't very interested. But then I found out that it was a roast of Ernesto Scorsone, and so I jumped at the opportunity. I've known Ernesto for a number of years, but hadn't really worked with him to speak of until I became governor of Kentucky in 2007. Ernesto at that time was a state senator from Lexington. He was a pain in the neck. I mean, an absolute headache. Complaining, always wanting something, always moaning and groaning. And I kept wondering, how in the world can I get rid of him? And then along came a vacancy as a Fayette Circuit judge, and Ernesto expressed interest in it. Well, I'm going to tell you, it took me about a millisecond to decide that Ernesto Scorsone was absolutely the most qualified person to be that judge. Because it got him out of my hair, got him out of Frankfurt, sent him back to where the lawyers in Lexington would have to deal with him.
Please welcome Wayne Swope.
You know, on October 3rd, 2021, I got a text message, as most of you in this room have probably received at one time or another. Do you have some time to chat? Oh, gee, Ernesto, what does he want? What event's coming up? What does he need now? So I debated. I waited a few hours, and I was like, sure, yeah. So he called. He said, well, I've got this issue, and I need some help with it. So he told me that he had been asked to do drag for the Divas of Christmas. I thought, oh my God. Two thoughts went through my head, really. First was, are you serious? The next was, I'm going to put him on hold and call John and ask John if he's been drinking, because there must be an issue. So anyway, we went on talking, and I said, Ernesto, you realize that there are going to be cameras there. You realize that everyone's going to be recording this and filming this. And he said, I know, I'm ready. I'm ready. You know, Ernesto had supported the Imperial Court of Kentucky for many years in all of our drag shows and all the fundraising that we had done. And so now it was time for him to make his presence on stage. But I swear it was like he was preparing for research for a grand jury trial. What do I do about nails? What about hair? What about pantyhose? What am I going to do about a dress? On and on and on. And every day I was like, Ernesto, we'll work on it. We'll get it taken care of. We'll get it taken care of. So finally, we conversed about songs and everything like that. And I said, well, you know, start practicing a song. That's important. So every couple of days he'd text me, oh, I think I'm learning it. I think I'm learning it. So, okay. So it came time that he said, well, I really have to have something to wear. So we made an appointment with Emmy Award-winning designer Patrick Howe, the drag designer in Lexington and all from drag queens all over the world. And Patrick's here tonight. Whoops. So we went, and as with drag, you get your body on. I think you saw a picture with Ernesto with his body on. He couldn't help but touch himself. He just kept touching all over. He said, oh, I like this, I like this. So Patrick couldn't even measure him for the gown because Ernesto couldn't keep his hands off himself. So that took about an hour, I guess, and he said, well, we've got to find shoes. So we headed down the street to Marty and Liz, I believe it was, a shoe store. So most drag queens wear a 4 or 5 inch heel. You know, that's standard to be prancing around on stage. Ernesto starts with a 2-inch heel. You know, we'll start there. Oh my gosh. I think the shelves were rattling. He was stumbling down the aisle. We quickly realized that a 2-inch heel was not his friend. So he keeps going along. He's picking out different colors. Well, we find a little 1-inch heel. He puts it on. He thinks, oh, this is very comfortable. I like this. So he's parading up and down the aisle. Now, mind you, at this point, we have an audience in the store. And this lady is discreetly shopping here, and she sees the pump that he has on, and those look very comfortable. And he said, they are. I think I'm going to buy them. So we left, and the weeks coming forth was endless texts and emails from Ernesto preparing for this grand event. We get here on December 12th, and he's like a deer in headlights back here. 2 hours early, and he's like, what do I do with my hands? How do I perform? Question after question. So we put him down in the chair, start the hair and makeup. I swear in 2 hours he transformed into a completely different person. He actually felt like a natural woman, I believe. The queen had arrived. Ladies and gentlemen, Sophia Laurent.
I just want to say on the record, as we lawyers say, that Ernesto, serving with him was one of the great privileges of my life. I enjoyed working with him, a very dedicated, conscientious, anybody that makes fun of politicians, I think of him, and I tell people, well, you never had the opportunity to serve with some of the great people that I got to serve with, and Ernesto was one of them. He was very, very well thought of by everyone he served with. I'm sure he was a great judge. Thank God I was never in front of him in any capacity. But anyway, he's had a great, great career in public service. I hope this night is very successful, despite all this that you've just heard. And I love him very much. Ernesto, You're great. God bless you.
Well, you know, Bob, you use the word pioneer to describe Ernesto. But when people come up to me, and they do this all the time, they ask me, what is the one word, Greg, that you would use to describe Ernesto's legislative career? And I always say the same word, unifier.
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 I just want to say thank you, Ernesto, for everything you have done. There's obviously a lot of people that love you, and you've touched a lot of people's lives, and so I really appreciate everything that you have done, and I hope you enjoyed this evening.
But now, Ernesto, a saint you're not, but we love you.
Congratulations on your career, Ernesto, and good luck in your retirement.
Ernesto has fought for the underdog his entire life. I would say he's made a difference in people's lives, but I would say that he's made a profound impact on countless Kentuckians, from working with education reform all the way to taking care of LGBTQ community. I will forever be grateful for his work in this area. I don't like any of that. Forget it. It's too serious.
The real truth, Ernesto Scorsone is a fantastic person, as we all know. He was a wonderful state senator. He was a great circuit judge. I had the opportunity to work with him for a number of years, as we both worked very hard to make Kentucky a better place to call home. So, Ernesto, we love you, buddy. Thanks.
I've enjoyed my relationship with Ernesto for many years, and it's good to see him continuing to be active in making Kentucky a better place to live.
Now, of course, Ernesto insisted that anything we say be funny and it be a roast, fully irreverent. So that's what I've tried to do, and I know that's what everybody else has tried to do. But I got to say, with complete conviction, that Ernesto has been a real inspiration for so many people. And as for me, I can tell you, if it hadn't have been for Ernesto, I would have never had the opportunity. If it hadn't have been for his inspiration, I would have never gotten into public service. And that has been as rewarding an experience in my lifetime as anything. So, Ernesto, thank you.
Ernesto, you know you have my heart. Everybody in the world respects you, and you've done so many things for Lexington and our state that are impactful and powerful. And I just want to say congratulations and well done.
We've heard a lot about Ernesto tonight. Italian, then American, a student, lawyer, representative, senator, judge, winner, loser, friend, tireless advocate. That's enough. On so many issues, he has been ahead of his time. Well, healthcare, which was mentioned. Go back and look at his proposals that he made in the Kentucky legislature, and you will hear echoes of the Affordable Care Act. On education, marriage equality, a woman's right to choose, he was ahead of our society every meaningful step of the way. We just need to catch up. He has always worked to expand the rights of individuals, not to take them away. To give all of us a place to feel welcome, make life better for other people, on bringing decency, respect, and honor to politics. He was head of the class. As the Republican Party lost its mind, Ernesto Scorsone kept the faith. What a nerd. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you one of the best human beings I have known, Ernesto Scorsone.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Wow. Wow. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you. This is wonderful. Really appreciate it. And a lot of people thank here for all the work tonight. It's been tremendous. And I've got some instructions. One is I've got to be short. Randall and Walter, thank you, I will. But I'm supposed to thank even the roasters. Now, Walter, Brandon, are you guys kidding? Should I be thanking the roasters? They weren't like friends. Some of those comments, they were more like grand jurors returning an indictment against me for high crimes and misdemeanors. The only question is, how am I going to plead? You know, I'm not going to admit all the bad things they said about me. I'm not going to plead guilty. And at the same time, how can I plead not guilty? There's too many people here that know that there's a lot of truth in what was said. You know, so I'll just put up my hands, plead nolo contendere, okay, and be thankful that the one person who didn't get up on stand is my husband, John Davis, because, you know, all the love and all the mutual support. After 28 years, you know he's got dirt on me. So I am so thankful for what he didn't say tonight. I tell you another reason to be thankful for tonight, and that is because we're in a hall with so many people that have worked so hard to improve the lives of LGBTQ Kentuckians. And I know that there's tremendous number of folks here who have been fighting, are fighting right now, and will be fighting in the future. Veterans of so many battles and campaigns, so many great allies that we have here, and as we like to refer to them as co-conspirators in trying to make life better for LGBTQ Kentuckians. I mean, we've got teachers and coaches who will call out homophobic stuff, you know, in comments and actions, and use those opportunities to educate and redirect. We got factory workers that are open about their queer partners. We got artists and other individuals that use their crafts to educate people about our community. Folks that push businesses to be more supportive. College students that ask for the campuses to be more supportive on LGBTQ stuff. And then the courageous number of folks that are here who have been able to come out to their families and loved ones. I've been fortunate to be at the right place at the right time, involving with litigation and legislation, executive orders, and ordinances dealing with queer issues. And those, I know, have been meaningful, and I'm very proud to have been involved with that. But one of the big lessons is that there is no silver bullet. There is no one case that's going to do it. There's no one piece of legislation. And the change is not going to come out of Washington. It's not going to come out of Frankfurt. But rather, it's going to come out from the work in the local communities, you know, to change people and the hearts and minds of folks. And that's why I'm so enamored with JustFund Kentucky, because that's what this organization is all about. It is reaching out in local communities and to help make those changes, those communications and discussions and the one-on-ones that we need to change things around. So whether it's Pikeville Pride, which is one of the many things that JustFund helps fund, whether it's buying queer books for a Powell County library, or sponsoring a speaker at Western Kentucky University, or helping healthcare workers be more sensitive about LGBT issues, or anti-bullying programs. These are small things that JustFund funds, but they're not inconsequential. They're very meaningful. They're powerful because they are doing the one-on-one work to educate and to turn things around. JustFund Kentucky has done wonderful stuff, and I'm so proud of it, and that's why I was willing to do this tonight. And but you know, we can do more, and I wouldn't be true to my nature to lead this opportunity here of asking us to do more. And you know, we're now engaging really in doing legacy stuff, which is to think about our death, you know, and you know, some of us are a lot closer to kicking the bucket than others, okay? And so we think, well, what are we going to do? You know, we can leave some stuff to keep the fight going, to keep the endowment going. And, we can just leave part of our estate. You can leave all of your estate, but, just part of it would help. And, or a life insurance policy or a retirement. But to continue the fight, because that's what it's all about. It's been a pleasure to have done this stuff. It's been an honor. I really appreciate all the help that you all have contributed to make what victories we've had and hopefully what more victories we will have. I love you all, even the roasters. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And now, to conclude our festivities, a performance by Savion Leroux.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Blossom on a tree, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. Dragonfly out in the sun, you know what I mean, don't you know? Butterflies all having fun, you know what I mean. Sleep in peace when day is done, that's what I mean. And this old world is a new world and a bold world for me. For scent of the pine, you know how I feel. Oh, freedom is mine, and I know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life. It's a new life for me, and I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. I feel so good. I feel so good.
drink some of this liquor with us, please. I hope you've had a great time tonight. Thank you for supporting Just Fund, and please stay with us for a little while. Thank you.